Welcome back to the third Nasterclass. Let's review last time. The last time, how do you make things funny? Wordplay, exaggeration, absurdity, and being ridiculous. That's how you do that. That's how you make something funny. But now let's jump into it. Let's jump into it now, the emotions, because it's the emotions that lead us to find two things. One, faith, which we're not going to talk about here, but that's very important to remember. And the second is humor. Why are we looking for that? Because when we get those emotions of sadness and fear of being scared, we're consumed with that. And that's the danger with the emotions. It's okay to feel what you feel because it's important to understand it and acknowledge it. But when it becomes chronic, when it becomes only the thing you think about, then that's where depression and that leads to. We're going to get to that in just a minute. But let's talk about exactly how do you do it, especially fear. Because we're all going to be in the doctor's chair sometime, and he's going to look at us or she's going to look at us and say, you have cancer. And when that happens, that avalanche of fear and sadness is just going to keep going. There's only thing that's going to stop that is humor. Bill Mahoney, 72 years old, walks out of the MRI, buttoning up his shirt, looks at his wife, Alberta, and said, honey, what did the MRI tell us? She said, well, the doctor told us that you have cancer in every part of your body except your lungs. Bill gets a big smile on his face and goes, well, thank God I didn't quit smoking. And that was Bill Mahoney. I discovered something in my search of why we just have to laugh. People that are naturally funny, that are witty, that make things funny out of almost everything every day, when something serious happens to them, they're going to keep that going. People that are uptight and real serious and hold things in, when something bad happens, it's going to get worse. That's why we have to laugh, and that's what this class is for. If you don't already know how to do that, these examples will show you how. Now, Bill Mahoney said that. Thank God I didn't quit smoking. But it didn't stop there. They thought Bill was bedridden because the cancer is all over his body and his bones. And daughter Annie was sleeping next to him in a chair. They had the hospital bed in the house. And she wakes up to a big thump. She runs down the hallway. There is Bill Mahoney, 72 years old, collapsed on the floor, just on all fours, on his hands and his knees. And she goes, Daddy, what can I do? I feel terrible. Tell me what I can get. What can I do for you? And Bill Mahoney looks up at her and says, casters. Get me 4 casters. One on each knee, one on each hand. You can roll me to the bathroom, roll me to the bedroom. I'll be just fine, honey. When you laugh at stuff like that, not just laughing, again, let's get to the humor. When you think that way, it completely pulls the rug out of fear. Completely pulls the rug out. Now, let's talk about angry for a second. Lloyd Arnsmeyer, buddy of mine, he's got an abscessed pancreas, temperature of 104 degrees, and he's laying in the hospital bed, and he hears the nurse saying to somebody else, I don't think he's going to make it. And every time he asks what's going on, nobody will tell him anything. He hears the doctor come in and start talking to the nurse. Lloyd takes the sheet and pulls it up over his head and is laying in bed like he's dead. Like somebody came and pulled it up like he's a goner. And the doctor came in and he could hear the doctor gasp and go, what the heck? And he pulled the covers down and Lloyd went, boom! And scared him. The doctor didn't think it was so funny, but Lloyd did. And once Lloyd started laughing, that made him feel better. The doctor laughed, felt better, and they got down to the business of fixing him and finding out what was wrong. He's still alive. He made through it. Here's why it's important, folks, and I'm telling you why we have to laugh at these emotional times. When they become chronic, when your emotion becomes the only thing that consumes you, you can't move on. You can't get through it. You have to be able to stop the avalanche of emotion, and that's what humor does. Now, let's keep going what we were talking about before. There's a physical things that happen to us when we laugh. 20 seconds of hard laughter is worth 3 minutes of rigorous exercise. But once we think funny, we stop the emotion. And then we laugh, we feel good, it reboots us, and it makes us approach it in a whole different light. Final story here. David Rule, 18 years old. The doctor comes in, his parents are there, and said, you have a brain tumor. He said, what? He said, you have a tumor on your brain. He said, I don't get it. What don't you get, the doctor said to David. You have a tumor on your brain. And David said, yeah, I heard that, but don't you have to have a brain first before you get a tumor? And starts laughing. And the doctor takes mom and dad and takes them outside. and says to Mom, I don't think David understands. And Patty Rule, I love her. Patty Rule says, oh, he does understand. We all understand. That's how he's going to deal with it. You do your job, we'll do ours. And if you can't find some humor in this, then you better get on board or we're going to get another doctor. That's the importance of humor. And that's the importance of thinking funny at a serious moment. The next emotion, next class coming up, we're going to talk about sadness. That's the tough one. That's a tough one. That's what leads to depression. That's what leads a lot to PTSD and especially grief. We're going to get to that. Keep laughing. Think funny. Look for those moments in your life where something can happen where you go, that is kind of funny. That is absurd. I can laugh at that. I'm going to give you a quote here and you'll hear me say it all the way through. Just because something is serious doesn't mean we can't laugh at it. And just because we're laughing at it doesn't mean it's not serious. Think funny. See you at the next class. Well, we're going to get into and talking about why we have to laugh through sadness.